Mother-in-law spent 2 years trying to break up my marriage. Hired investigators. Planted fake evidence. I exposed her affair, fake cancer, and tax fraud. She lost everything. Some people think mother-in-law problems are just petty family drama. They're wrong. When a psychotic bitch decides to destroy your marriage using every manipulation tactic in the book, you have 2 choices. Roll over and let her win, or go nuclear and obliterate her entire existence. My name is Rachel Martinez. I'm 29, and this is the story of how I turned my evil mother-in-law's life into a smoking crater after she tried to destroy my marriage. My husband David and I met 4 years ago at a coffee shop where I was working as a barista while finishing my nursing degree. He was charming, successful, and seemed genuinely interested in building a serious relationship. We moved in together after 8 months and got married 2 years later. The problem started the moment David introduced me to his mother, Linda Patterson. Linda was a 58-year-old woman who had never remarried after her divorce from David's father 15 years earlier. She had built her entire identity around being David's devoted mother and wasn't about to let some random woman take her place as the most important female in his life. "So you're the girl who's been taking up all of David's time," Linda said. When we first met, looking me up and down like I was contaminated. "Mom, this is Rachel," David said. "She's amazing, and I think you'll really like her once you get to know her." "I'm sure," Linda replied with a fake smile. "David's brought home lots of girls over the years. Most of them don't last very long." The hostility was immediate and obvious, but David seemed oblivious to his mother's passive-aggressive behavior. Over the next few months, Linda made it clear that she considered me a temporary inconvenience who would eventually disappear from David's life. She would make cutting comments about my appearance, my job, and my family background whenever David wasn't paying attention. "I hope you're not getting too attached to David," she would say when he left the room. "He tends to lose interest in girls pretty quickly. David mentioned you're still in school. That must be challenging financially. David's always been attracted to project girls, girls he thinks he can fix or save somehow." These comments were designed to make me feel insecure about my relationship, while maintaining plausible deniability if David overheard. When David proposed to me after 18 months of dating, Linda's subtle hostility escalated into open warfare. "Are you sure about this?" she asked David in front of me. "Marriage is such a big step and you barely know each other." "Mom, I love Rachel and I want to spend my life with her. I just think you should be careful. Some women target successful men for financial security rather than love." Linda was essentially calling me a gold digger to my face while framing it as maternal concern for David's well-being. The wedding planning period was a nightmare. Linda undermined every decision we made, criticized every vendor we chose, and constantly suggested alternatives that would exclude me from the planning process. "Maybe Rachel should focus on finishing school while you and I handle the wedding details," she suggested. "Planning a wedding is very stressful, and she seems overwhelmed." "I think David should have more input in choosing your dress," she told me. "Men have such strong opinions about how their wives should look." "Are you sure you want such an expensive reception? David's been working so hard to pay for everything." The actual wedding day was a disaster because of Linda's behavior. She wore a white dress despite my explicit request that she choose another color, made a toast that focused entirely on David's childhood with barely any mention of me, and spent the reception telling guest stories about David's ex-girlfriends. "David dated this lovely girl, Sarah, for 3 years," she told my college friends. "She was so perfect for him. I always hoped they'd get back together." During the mother-son dance, Linda whispered something in David's ear that made him look uncomfortable and glance at me with confusion. Later, I found out she had told him that several guests had commented on how inappropriate my dress was. But Linda's real campaign to destroy my marriage began after we returned from our honeymoon. She started calling David multiple times per day with manufactured emergencies that required his immediate attention. "I think someone's been trying to break into my house," she would say. "Can you come over right away? My car is making strange noises. I'm afraid to drive it. Can you take me to the mechanic? I've been having chest pains. I need you to take me to the doctor. These emergencies always turn out to be nothing, but they establish a pattern of David dropping everything to rush to his mother's aid. Linda also began inserting herself into our plans and inviting herself to our activities. "What are you two doing for dinner tonight?" she would ask when she called. "I haven't eaten all day, and I don't want to cook for just myself." "Are you going to see that movie this weekend?" "I've been wanting to see it too. Maybe I'll join you." Every date, every weekend activity, every couple's time became a three-person event because David couldn't say no to his mother's request to join us. When I tried to discuss Linda's intrusive behavior with David, he defended her and minimized my concerns. "She's just lonely since Dad left," he would say. "She doesn't have anyone else in her life besides me. She's not trying to interfere with our marriage. She's just trying to feel included in our lives. You're being too sensitive. Mom's always been protective of me." But Linda's real strategy was much more sophisticated and sinister than simple interference. She began a systematic campaign to convince David that I was untrustworthy, unstable, and potentially cheating on him. It started with subtle comments about my behavior and character. "Rachel seemed angry when I saw her at the grocery store yesterday," she would tell David. "She barely acknowledged me. I hope everything's okay between you two. I noticed Rachel's been getting a lot of text messages lately. She seems secretive about her phone. Rachel mentioned she was working late again this week. That's been happening a lot recently." These observations were either completely fabricated or twisted interpretations of normal behavior, but they planted seeds of doubt in David's mind about my faithfulness and honesty. Linda escalated her psychological warfare by hiring a private investigator to follow me and document my daily activities. I later discovered that Linda had spent over 15, zero on private investigation services over 6 months, paying for daily surveillance, background checks, and even attempts to hack into my social media accounts. The investigator's report shows Rachel meeting with a man at a coffee shop. Linda would tell David, referring to my study sessions with a male classmate from nursing school. "She's been going to a hotel downtown multiple times this month," Linda would report, referencing my clinical rotations at the hospital attached to that hotel. Every innocent activity in my life was being twisted into evidence of secret affairs or suspicious behavior. Linda also began spreading rumors about me to David's friends and extended family. "I'm worried about David," she would tell his cousins. "Rachel's been acting very strange lately. I think she might be having an affair. David seems stressed recently," she would mention to his coworkers. "I think there might be problems in his marriage that he doesn't want to talk about." Linda was systematically poisoning everyone in David's social circle against me, while maintaining her image as the concerned mother-in-law who just wanted the best for her son. The psychological manipulation escalated when Linda began forging evidence of my supposed infidelity. She created fake text message conversations using spoofed phone numbers, making it appear that I was having intimate conversations with other men. Linda had apparently taught herself advanced photo editing techniques and created dozens of fake screenshots showing text conversations between me and various men, complete with intimate photos and explicit messages that I had never sent. She photoshopped pictures of me with male colleagues and classmates to make innocent interactions look romantic or inappropriate. Most audaciously, she hired an actor to call our house phone and leave flirtatious voicemails for me when she knew David would be home to hear them. "Hey, beautiful," the fake caller would say. "I can't wait to see you again tonight. Meet me at the usual place." Linda had scripted multiple variations of these calls, with different actors calling at strategic times to maximize the psychological impact on David. When David heard these messages, Linda would be there to provide interpretation and escalate his suspicions. "I knew something was going on," she would say. "I could tell Rachel was acting strange. This proves she's been lying to you." Linda even went so far as to plant physical evidence in our house. She would leave receipts for romantic restaurants in my purse, hide condoms in my car, and plant lingerie that wasn't mine in our bedroom. "I found this in Rachel's drawer," she would tell David, showing him lingerie she had purchased and planted. "It's not something she's ever worn for you, is it?" David's trust in me began eroding under the constant pressure of his mother's manipulation campaign. He started questioning my whereabouts, checking my phone, and becoming suspicious of my interactions with male friends and colleagues. "Who was that guy you were talking to at the hospital?" he would ask after Linda had fed him information from her surveillance. "Why do you have so many male contacts in your phone? Are you sure you were just studying when you went to that coffee shop?" Our marriage was deteriorating under the weight of Linda's psychological warfare, and she was positioning herself as David's primary emotional support as our relationship became more strained. "I hate to see you going through this," she would tell David, "but I warned you that Rachel wasn't right for you. Maybe you should consider whether this marriage is really what you want," she would suggest. "You deserve someone who's honest and faithful. I'll always be here for you no matter what happens with Rachel." Linda also began sabotaging my career by calling my workplace with false complaints about my performance and behavior. "I'm concerned about one of your nurses, Rachel Martinez," she would tell my supervisor, using a fake name. "I witnessed her being very rough with an elderly patient yesterday. I saw Rachel Martinez sleeping during her shift last night," she would claim. "She seemed intoxicated or under the influence of something." These false reports resulted in me being written up multiple times and placed on probation at work, despite my previously excellent performance record. But Linda made a critical mistake when she decided to escalate from psychological manipulation to criminal behavior. 6 months ago, Linda attempted to frame me for stealing money from the medical practice where I worked as a nurse. She had somehow gained access to the practice's financial records and created fake documentation showing that I had been embezzling funds from patient payments. Linda had spent weeks creating a false paper trail that showed me allegedly stealing small amounts of money over several months, totaling about 80. She had forged my signature on fake documents, created false bank deposits, and even planted physical evidence like cash and deposit slips in my locker at work. Linda's plan was to present this evidence to David and my employer simultaneously, destroying both my marriage and my career in one coordinated attack. But Linda didn't know that I'd been documenting her campaign against me for months. I had started recording our conversations after noticing that Linda would lie to David about things she had said to me. I had installed security cameras in our house after noticing that items had been moved or missing when Linda visited. I had saved all the fake text messages and suspicious voicemails she had arranged. I had hired my own private investigator to follow Linda and document her activities. Most importantly, I had discovered Linda's own secrets that she had been hiding from David and the rest of the family. When Linda presented her fake embezzlement evidence to David, I was ready with my counterattack. "David," I said calmly, "before you make any decisions based on your mother's accusations, there are some things you need to know about Linda." I showed David the security footage of Linda planting evidence in our house, rearranging items to make me look suspicious, and even stealing small amounts of cash to frame me for theft. The security cameras I had installed had captured Linda in our bedroom, going through my personal belongings and planting the fake lingerie and other evidence. "She's been breaking into our house when we're not here," I explained to David as we watched the footage. "Look at the timestamps. This was when we were both at work." I played recordings of Linda's phone calls with the private investigator where she discussed how to manipulate the surveillance reports to make my innocent activities look suspicious. "I need you to make it look like she's meeting men for romantic purposes," Linda's voice said on the recording. "I don't care if you have to lie in the report." I showed David the bank records proving that Linda had paid over $20 to various people for fake evidence, surveillance, and actor services to frame me for infidelity. Most devastatingly, I revealed the information my PI had gathered about Linda's own secret life. Linda had been having an affair with Pastor Williams from her church for over 2 years, meeting him at motels while David thought she was attending Bible study. My investigator had photographed them together multiple times, captured them entering motel rooms, and even recorded their conversations about their affair. "I love you more than my husband ever loved me," Linda could be heard saying on one recording. "David doesn't need to know about us until I'm ready to leave my old life behind." Linda had been evading taxes on income from a side business she ran from her house, hiding tens of thousands of dollars from the IRS. My investigator had discovered that Linda was running an illegal gambling operation from her home, taking bets on sports games and keeping the profits without reporting them as income. She had been operating this business for over 5 years and had evaded paying taxes on approximately $150 in unreported income. Most shocking of all, Linda had been faking medical symptoms and lying about having early-stage breast cancer to gain sympathy and attention from David and the church community. My investigator had obtained Linda's medical records, showing that she had never been diagnosed with cancer and that her doctor had repeatedly told her that her test results were normal. Despite this, Linda had been telling everyone that she was bravely fighting cancer, while secretly collecting donations from church members who wanted to help with her medical expenses. She had raised over $25,000 from her church community for fake cancer treatments while using the money to fund her affair and her campaign against me. Your mother has been lying to you about everything. I told David as I presented the evidence. She's been manipulating you to destroy our marriage while living a secret life full of fraud and deception. David was devastated as he realized the extent of his mother's manipulation and lies. I can't believe she would do this, he said, looking through the documentation. She made me think you were the problem. She's been playing us against each other while pretending to be the concerned mother. But I wasn't finished destroying Linda's life. I had planned my revenge carefully, and exposing her to David was just the beginning. I sent copies of the evidence to Pastor Williams' wife, exposing Linda's affair and destroying the pastor's marriage and career. Pastor Williams' wife, Margaret, was devastated but grateful to finally understand why her husband had been distant and secretive for years. I knew something was wrong, Margaret told me, when I called to inform her about the affair. He's been lying about where he goes and what he's doing. Now I know why. Margaret confronted Pastor Williams with the evidence, and he was forced to confess to the affair and resign from his position at the church. I reported Linda's tax evasion to the IRS, providing them with detailed financial records of her unreported gambling income. The IRS launched an immediate investigation and discovered that Linda owed over $50,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. They froze her bank accounts and placed liens on her property while conducting their audit. I exposed Linda's fake cancer diagnosis to her church community, providing them with medical records that proved she had never been diagnosed with cancer. The church members who had donated money for Linda's fake medical treatments were outraged and demanded that she return every penny. Several church members filed police reports for fraud, and Linda was arrested and charged with multiple counts of theft by deception. I also sent the evidence of Linda's campaign against me to David's extended family, showing them how she had been manipulating family relationships and spreading lies about me for years. David's cousins, aunts, and uncles were horrified to learn that Linda had been using them to spread false rumors about me while pretending to be the concerned mother-in-law. She told us you were probably cheating on David, his cousin Michelle told me. She made us think you were this terrible person who was going to hurt him. The family was so disgusted by Linda's behavior that they collectively decided to cut off all contact with her. The fallout was immediate and devastating for Linda. Pastor Williams' wife divorced him and exposed their affair to the entire congregation, ending his career and destroying Linda's reputation in the church community. The church board published a statement condemning both Pastor Williams and Linda for their affair and fraud, warning other churches in the area about their behavior. The IRS investigation resulted in Linda owing over $50,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest, forcing her to sell her house and downsize significantly. They also charged her with criminal tax evasion, which carried potential prison time. The church community was outraged about Linda's fake cancer scheme and demanded that she return the money she had fraudulently collected for fake medical expenses. When Linda couldn't repay the money immediately, several church members filed civil lawsuits against her for fraud. David's family was horrified by the evidence of Linda's manipulation and cut off contact with her, realizing that she had been poisoning family relationships for years. Linda went from being the respected church member and devoted mother to being a pariah who had lost her home, her community, and her family relationships. She was also facing multiple criminal charges that could result in significant prison time. "You destroyed my life," Linda sobbed when she called to beg me to stop the investigations. "You destroyed your own life," I replied. "I just made sure everyone knew the truth about who you really are. David will never forgive you for this. David already knows everything, and he's the one who told me to pursue every legal option against you. Please, I'll do anything. I'll leave you alone. I'll move away." "It's too late for that, Linda. You should have thought about consequences before you tried to destroy my marriage and frame me for crimes I didn't commit. Linda was forced to move to a different state to escape the scandal and find housing she could afford after the IRS seized her assets. She lost her position at the church and her standing in the community. Most importantly, she lost her relationship with David, who was so disgusted by her behavior that he cut off all contact. "I can't believe I let her manipulate me into doubting you," David told me. "She's been lying about everything for years. She almost succeeded in destroying our marriage. But she didn't succeed because you were smart enough to gather evidence and fight back." David and I went through couples counseling to repair the damage that Linda's manipulation had caused to our relationship. "It's going to take time to rebuild the trust that was damaged," our therapist explained. "But the fact that you both recognize what happened and want to move forward is encouraging." The therapy helped David understand how his mother had been manipulating him since childhood, using guilt, fake emergencies, and emotional blackmail to control his behavior. "She's been doing this my whole life," David realized during one of our sessions. "Every time I tried to become independent, she would create some crisis that required me to take care of her." David also had to deal with the guilt of having doubted me based on his mother's lies. "I should have trusted you," he said during one of our sessions. "I should have known that my mother was lying." "Linda was very skilled at manipulation," I replied. "She spent years perfecting her techniques. You can't blame yourself for falling for them." A year later, our marriage is stronger than ever because we learned to communicate better and recognize manipulation tactics. David has completely cut contact with Linda and refuses to respond to her attempts to reconcile. "She made her choices," he says, when people ask if he feels bad about cutting off his mother. "She chose to try to destroy my marriage instead of accepting my wife. Those are the consequences of her actions." We've also developed much better boundaries with other family members and learned to recognize when people are trying to manipulate our relationship. Linda occasionally tries to contact us through Flying Monkeys family members who think we should forgive her and rebuild the relationship. "She's your mother," they say to David. "Family is important. She stopped being my mother when she tried to frame my wife for crimes and destroy my marriage," David replies. Blood doesn't give someone the right to abuse your family. 6 months ago, we heard that Linda had been arrested for welfare fraud in her new state, apparently unable to break her pattern of dishonest behavior. "Some people never learn," David said when we heard the news. "She's still trying to scam the system instead of taking responsibility for her choices." Linda was convicted and sentenced to 18 months in prison for the welfare fraud, in addition to the charges she was still facing in our state for the church fraud and tax evasion. I have no regrets about destroying Linda's life in response to her attempts to destroy mine. She spent 2 years systematically trying to break up my marriage through lies, manipulation, fraud, and psychological warfare. She hired private investigators to stalk me, forged evidence of infidelity, sabotaged my career, and ultimately tried to frame me for embezzlement. She stole money from church members by faking a cancer diagnosis while having an affair with their pastor. She evaded paying taxes on illegal gambling income while lecturing others about morality and responsibility. The consequences she faced were entirely proportional to the crime she committed and the damage she tried to cause. Linda thought she could destroy my life without facing any consequences because she believed David would always choose his mother over his wife. She was wrong. When you try to destroy someone's marriage and livelihood through criminal behavior, you forfeit any right to sympathy or mercy. Linda learned that lesson the hard way, and she'll be dealing with the consequences of her choices for the rest of her life. Sometimes the best way to protect your family is to completely destroy the people who threaten them. And sometimes those people are family members who should have known better. The most important lesson I learned from this experience is that evil often hides behind familiar faces and claims of love. Linda spent years presenting herself as the devoted mother who just wanted the best for her son, while secretly orchestrating a campaign of psychological terrorism against his wife. She used David's love for her as a weapon against our marriage, exploiting his loyalty to manipulate him into doubting and mistrusting me. But in the end, the truth won out, and Linda's own criminal behavior became the evidence that destroyed her life. Justice isn't always immediate, but is usually thorough when it finally arrives. Linda thought she was smarter than everyone else, and could manipulate people indefinitely without consequences. She learned that some people fight back, and when they do, they fight to win completely.